In this episode, we're talking about creating positive bias so that you have a perspective of your life and what you desire that is literally in your favor. We're taking the idea of things are always working out for you to new depths. You ready? Let's do it. Hello, you are listening to the Love Your Life as a Performer podcast. I'm Kelly Youngman, and I am the life coach for performers. I help actors, singers, and dancers love themselves and their lives way more. So keep listening to learn how you can love your life both on and off the stage. Hello, and welcome back to episode 80 of the Love Your Life as a Performer podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about creating positive bias. And I feel like I'm excited to talk about this on the podcast because it takes the belief of things are always working out for you to a deeper level. And I feel like this is where you get to actually embody that truth so that it's not just being optimistic or, having a positive outlook on life. It's knowing that things are always working out for you. And on top of that, expecting things to work out for you. This is where we really go deep into your belief system, into your subconscious, and create the positive expectation that you get what you want out of life. And I feel like this is slightly nuanced because I feel like sometimes when we talk about getting what we want, it can create entitlement. It can also create sort of like a firm grip where it's like it has to be my way or the highway. Like I have to have it X, Y, and Z, right? Like that's not necessarily what we're talking about here. It's a space of ease and positive expectancy where it's safe to know that life is going to happen and whatever's meant to be will be in perfect timing. But I feel like when you have positive bias, it just is that energy that life is leaning in your favor. It's like the embodiment of lucky girl syndrome, of knowing that you can be the version of you that gets what you want. And again, it might not be literal every single time. And what would be different if you started experiencing positive bias? And so before we even go into positive bias, let's just talk about what bias means in the context of this conversation. Because I feel like, generally speaking, we think of biases as these unconscious preferences, beliefs, shortcuts in our brain that we apply to people, circumstances, things outside of us. And so when I'm using this idea, this concept of positive bias, it really is like creating the belief system that leans in my favor so that when I'm experiencing positive bias, I'm giving myself the favor, right? Like I'm leaning my perspective in favor of me. I'm leaning my perspective of my life in favor of the things that I want. I'm giving energy to the outcomes that I want in a favorable way, right? So again, I'm creating positive bias for myself to experience more of what I want by creating positive expectancy, by creating belief and creating energy for the outcomes that I desire. Okay? So let me try to give you a few examples. For example, if I'm creating positive bias, I'm going to envision that things literally go the way I want them to go. And again, I feel like this can sometimes get a little crunchy if we're trying to force things, but positive bias is not forcing anything or needing something to be a certain way to feel a certain way, right? Positive bias is simply leaning in favor of yourself. Okay. So again, if I'm creating positive bias about an audition experience, it might just be planting the seeds that I'm an excellent candidate, right? It might be that I'm highly qualified for this position. Positive bias is like, they love me and they want to see more. It's me planting the images and circumstances in my mind that literally lean in my favor. Instead of what a lot of times we do is we visualize the opposite. We unintentionally visualize them, looking at our resume and thinking, ugh, like this person's so unqualified, or these credits, they're outdated. Like we sometimes have these thoughts that come up that unintentionally go against us, right? We're almost like creating negative bias in our own brains when we're, entertaining really negative self-talk, or we're shit-talking ourselves, or looking at all of our flaws, right? It's creating this extra energy of negative resistance that then we have to muddy through. And so when you're leaning into positive bias, again, you're just thinking in your own favor. You're seeing the world in your own favor. You're believing that the universe is in your favor. And as a result, you have less mind drama to work through, right? Like less conflicting thoughts, less procrastinating in sort of going back and forth on things, less indecision. Because again, like an example of positive bias would be I make excellent decisions. So I wouldn't even need to spend time second guessing or, doubting if I'm making the right choice. If my positive bias is that I'm the kind of person that makes fantastic decisions and I make the best decision in any moment. And of course, I can always hold the responsibility of that decision if later on, maybe it wasn't exactly the decision I wanted to make. And I can always trust myself that I made the best decision in that moment, right? Like that's positive bias. Again, I feel like this is just taking the idea that things are always working out for you to an embodied layer where your belief system is creating the reality that you're experiencing. And if you're going to do that, why not create a positive bias? Why not create a belief system where you quite literally get the things that matter to you most in the way of perfect timing, knowing that the universe is on your side, co-creating, co-conspiring at the same time. Another way that I use positive bias is, again, just like trusting that the people in my life love and support me, trusting and expecting that I'm surrounded by good people. When you have positive bias, I feel like the thing that's so beautiful about it is that you can let your defense guard down. I feel like there's less protection and preservation mode when you're experiencing and embodying positive bias because you're expecting people to treat you well. Like there's less defense or offense. I don't know. My sports analogies are not very good, but there's less protection mode because you're already believing that the universe is bringing you only good things. It's basically another way to access the feeling state of being a vibrational match to the things that you desire. Because if you're already expecting good things to come, you're already anticipating and feeling good and feeling grateful and trusting that things are aligning in your favor. Okay? So this is an opportunity to upgrade what you are currently believing is your life experience, especially if you've been someone who thinks I'm unlucky or I'm the kind of person that bad things always happen to. It's kind of funny because I feel like that's so far outside of the realm of my consciousness, like that literally could not be further from the set of beliefs that I have about my life and my life experience. So, for example, this past weekend, I went to one of my best friend's weddings in Minneapolis. And I don't know, I guess if you're listening to this in real time, there was a recent IT crash and all of the stuff, flights, delays, etc. The interesting thing is, again, when I'm experiencing positive bias on my life, I'm just the kind of person that has really easy travel, right? Like my life and the way I travel is easy breezy. And that was our experience the entire time. It's in the collective consciousness. It definitely came up in my thoughts of like, oh, I wonder if my flight will be impacted. But my positive bias is that I'm a person who has very seamless travel. So it really didn't linger in my thoughts. I wasn't worried. I wasn't panicked. I just kind of trusted that my travel would be seamless per usual. Interestingly enough, Terry and I both have TSA pre-check. So we got to the airport, we were carrying on. We really walked through security right pretty much into boarding, and it was so seamless. We even got to sit in a window seat, which is my favorite. All of it was effortless. We had a row to ourselves, all of it. Same thing on the way back, right? We had timed it out. We have TSA pre-check, but it was so fascinating when we got to the airport to return back to New York, there was like a really long security line. I feel like there was a moment of worry of like, oh gosh, like what's going on here? But my positive bias about myself in the world is that I travel seamlessly. And so even though there was that long line, which the security guard said was even longer, a mile long, an hour before, we walked through security in minutes and made it to our gate early before we even boarded and got home with ease. And again, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong, but I noticed that one of my best friends recently traveled and she got delayed and had this whole long thing when she was coming back from Europe. And then even coming back from Minneapolis, her flight was delayed 3.5 hours. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. And I haven't really had a conversation with her about it, but I just think it's fascinating when we can have such vastly different experiences. Not pointing fingers or blame at anyone, but when certain things are not in our realm of consciousness or even in our thoughts, it doesn't become a part of our experience. It becomes a part of our experience once we're focused on it and thinking about it. So if someone, I'm using my friend as an example, but someone who just experienced severe travel delays, it would make sense that they would think, oh my gosh, I hope I don't experience that again, or I hope it doesn't go like this, or I hope this, right? Those are all very different frequencies of thought than simply being in the experience of I travel seamlessly. Okay. And so there's so many different ways to create positive bias, but really it's just having the perspective that you're the kind of person that things work out for, that you're the kind of person that has an effortless life experience, that you're the kind of person that receives exactly what you've been waiting for and asking for. Okay. And to go back to the point I made about entitlement, right? Like this isn't about, crossing the line of like, if I don't get what I want, like throwing a tantrum and having it, I don't know, feel like such a negative thing if it doesn't work out exactly as you hoped. And it's also trusting that even when it doesn't look exactly as you pictured, that it's still happening in your favor. And something I shared recently with my communities and that I'll now share with you on the podcast is that last week, I actually had to go to the ER and I was diagnosed with Bell's palsy. So right now I'm on the mend and have been, very grateful for the calm and ease that I have in my mind to navigate the circumstance. But even still, like while I am having to slow down, I'm already seeing the ways that this is such a gift. I'm experiencing rest, depths of rest in a way that I haven't previously. When I really give myself permission to do nothing, I can't recall the last time my mind has been this still. and my time has been so luxurious and spacious. And so even in the midst of navigating Bell's palsy, I have positive bias that my treatment is working out. I started believing right away that I'm the kind of person that, medicines are highly effective. So as soon as I started taking the prednisone they gave me, I was like, wow, this is really working. Like, this is all examples of positive bias, of believing that I'm the kind of person that heals quickly. I'm the kind of person that recovers quickly, right? I feel like, again, especially with science and medicine and all of the things, it can be so, enticing to look at the facts and the details or the statistics and try to figure out what are my odds. And positive bias doesn't really require any of that, right? I'm not trying to think, what are my chances of healing? My positive bias is that I'm the kind of person that heals, and my healing's already happening quickly because my body is responsive, right? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like giving yourself the advantage in the thoughts, beliefs, and the paradigm of existence that you're creating based on your thoughts. And so right now, I'm fully trusting that this is here to teach me something. This is here to show me something. It goes back to what I was talking about last week on the podcast of layered learning, of engaging with the circumstance in a way that gives you power, so that when you're experiencing positive bias, you just genuinely know that no matter what's happening, it's really, truly happening for you. And I don't know, I feel like it lightens the pressure of needing to manifest perfectly or be in alignment or any of that. Because again, it takes it one step deeper, one layer deeper, where it's just who you are, right? Positive bias is creating a life perspective that is in your favor. And truly, if you're going to have any life experience, why not decide that you are the luckiest person in the world? Why not decide that you are a living miracle and that your gifts are here, your opportunities, your lessons, your challenges, they're all gifts that are here for you to grow and to experience the fullness of yourself and your life, right? Like, that's positive bias. I feel like I could probably, in another moment of time, think of millions of examples of this, and I will continue to share and talk about this concept. But for now, try it on. What does it look like to start giving yourself a positive bias? What does it look like to give yourself the advantage in your own mind of knowing that you're the kind of person that good things happen to, that people love showing up for you, that people always support your ideas and your creations, that your agents, your friends, your family, they're on your side, right? It's so funny because I feel like people's biggest fear when I talk to them about creating this positive bias, it's almost like they're afraid of being too selfish or too greedy. And when we're creating positive bias, it's not taking away from anyone, right? We're not changing the quality of human that you are. You're not suddenly just blowing people off. If anything, having this positive bias, or at least in my experience, makes me more compassionate, generous, loving, knowing that everything I give out, I get back. And it's just this big cycle of love that I get to be a participant in. It's this chain of love and nurturing and giving that when I give myself, I expect it to receive it. And it just comes back around. So try it on. Try it on this week. What would happen if you started experiencing your life with a positive bias, where you expect the best and only the best things to happen to you? And the last thing I'll say is, in the beginning, it might be normal to not see the evidence of it. your brain is going to want to say, hey, that was stupid. Look, you tried to believe something different and look at what happened. And maybe you'll see evidence of the opposite. I want you to be willing to push past that moment, right? Push past that moment where your brain says, this is dumb. This doesn't work. This makes no sense. And just start expecting to see the evidence. Give yourself permission to trust that it's working even before it does. And when you create the belief before the result, you already know what happens, right? So create the positive bias, try it on, and I'll meet you back here for another episode. Hey, I want to invite you to get started because if this is blowing your mind, imagine the impact of when we actually work together. You get to love your life as an actor, singer, or dancer, even including auditions. And if that sounds amazing, come join us inside of Momentum. You get lifetime access to the Performers Plan, coaching, community, and more, and I will be supporting you the entire way. Go to kellyyoungmanwellness.com/momentum to join us now.